This is a formal meeting. I can advise that members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during the public open session, but not at other times. This meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. Can I please ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking? And I might add as well, if a member, one of your colleagues has made a point, please avoid duplication. We've got quite a long agenda this evening, so just try and be focused as much as we can, please. So first item, apologies for absence. We have Councillor Gilcher is not with us this evening. Any other apologies? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Any members' interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, in relation to any item on the agenda, please? No. Thank you very much. We'll move on. I've got no announcements on this meeting to start with, so we'll move straight on to the public open session. We have one member of the public, albeit it's Councillor Fage, so I'm not sure he's classed as a member of the public in this. Oh, I beg your pardon. So can I just ask them whether any member of the public wishes to speak on this agenda item, please? Any agenda item on the agenda? Councillor Fage.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Told you wouldn't get rid of me. So item 9A is just what I'd just like to speak on very briefly. So changing date of Biggleswade Joint Committee. I think it's great that we're being proactive about trying to set the agenda for Joint Committee, thinking about when it is meeting. But I understand there is probably some appetite, I know, alongside some of my colleagues at Central Beds, but I'm sure among town councillors as well, to really think about how the Joint Committee can work in future. Something that I think has been raised in the past is this is a committee which gets virtually no engagement from members of the public, partly because of the time of day that it's held. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a consideration for this evening because you're considering the date, but something perhaps that the town council would like to think about more generally is when this committee actually meets, whether the middle of the daytime is the right time, particularly given that many, particularly Central Beds councillors, but also town councillors do work full time too. So perhaps that's something, perhaps not for this meeting, but for a future one.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Page. That's noted. Next item, then, assuming there's no other members of the public wishing to speak, then we have no invited speaker. Members' questions. Any members' questions, please? Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one. I'm sure many members here this evening will agree that about the announcement by Barclays to withdraw from Biggleswade towards the end of August. What I would like to do is maybe if we can have this on the agenda for next meeting to discuss the broader issues around, I guess, the banking needs or banking availability in Biggleswade. And it's a little bit maybe out of our brief, I'm not sure, but it does impact on the town centre, it does impact on traders. I'm concerned there's a knock-on effect, there's issues around the post office, etc., other banks, and whether we can have that as an agenda item on a future meeting so people can bring ideas, suggestions and proposals, how we may take that forward, because I think there's a danger of a drip approach, I think, to losing further high street names from the high street.
I think that's fair shout, Councillor Woodhead. I think something we need to think about what our approach might be. So whether it appears on an agenda or how we think about it, I certainly consider that as an option. Peter, if we've got that there. Councillor Strong.
A follow-up effectively from that. We have got a community engagement meeting on the 5th of June, and I hope that this can also be on the agenda there. And as a matter of interest, Barclays, in their wonderful literature, which seems to contradict itself in parts, is indicating that it's going to consult on the closure after they've decided to do so. Have we had any communication from Barclays yet about the closure? Because the impact on the town centre and the lack of people coming into the town centre is going to have a major detrimental effect on the town. So this is serious. I fully support Councillor Woodhead's question on this, but have Barclays actually had the courtesy as a council which they wish to consult with, consulted?
Councillor Shawn, I don't know the answer to that person. I'm going to ask the clerk to respond, and if the clerk isn't aware, then we'll look into it.
I can confirm they have not consulted with us.
So again, that perhaps forms part of our discussions in relation to this item in due course. Any other members' questions? Councillor Patel.
Hi, okay, so this is in relation to the Biggleswade Carnival. We've got the Biggleswade Carnival Duck Race on the 11th of June. I'm part of the committee there, and there was talk that it's been agreed with the town council that they would support us. I mean, the public realms team would support us by assisting with the gazebos. I was just wanted to confirm if that is the case, because there were issues last year where, you know, it was agreed, but there was, you know, certain situations beyond our control which didn't make it happen. So yeah, so first thing is that still going ahead? And secondly, I think it was also offered that we'd be able to advertise the event on the notice boards around town. Is that still the case as well?
So I'm going to defer this one to Isaac. So Isaac, you can respond to that.
Yeah, it is in my diary and colleagues' diaries as well. So it will happen in terms of the gazebos, the closure of the car park, and then access to the cricket club toilets. Excellent. I haven't had any material come over for the notice boards, but we can absolutely do that as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other members' questions? Go ahead, Councillor Patel.
Right, so this is in relation to, I'm not sure, well, I know it doesn't come under the remit of the town council, but in relation to the bins being removed on the King's Reach, the square. Yeah, so the bins were put in, now they've been removed. So is there anything that the town council can assist with in having them basically put back? Because at the moment, there was just sort of like, originally, I believe we were told that they would be moved sort of like a few meters down the road, and then all of a sudden they've been removed, which is causing great nuisance to other businesses and residents, because things like dog litter, etc., has just been left on the streets. So is there anything the town council can assist in relation to that?
I think what I'm going to say on that one is it's clearly an issue, that's something that's been created. In terms of how the council can respond to that, I'm going to perhaps that we can write to the consortium and see whether there's an option there for them to be reinstated. But clearly it's something that a problem was trying to be fixed, and it's not worked out that way. So I think there's maybe some options for the council to write to the consortium and see whether we can take that forward. Beyond that, I think there's little more than we can do at this stage. But I'm going to go with Councillor Albone next, then, please.
Yeah, following on from that is that there may be some planning enforcement that could be brought to bear on that, depending on what the planning conditions were on that square in the first place.
So we can take that away. So I think, Peter, if we can deal with that, I'm going to go with Councillor Strawn next, then, please.
Following on the same point, I imagine that development has still not been formally adopted by Central Beds Council on there. So it's probably all under the control of the consortium. So we should, I think, be contacting CBC as well as the consortium to see if there's anything they can do to improve because it is health and welfare as well, because you don't want vermin up there.
Absolutely not. Okay, thank you. Councillor Agnew.
The notice board on the Orchard Centre perhaps should be updated. I'm not sure whether this is something to discuss here, but it's very outdated.
Yeah, I think we'll pick that up separately. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Patel.
I have been contacted by a resident. This is, again, I'm not sure what remit it falls under, and I'm not sure if any councillors have been involved before, but it's regarding the wall, Franklin's Park, the wall along the river. Apparently it's damaged, it's sort of like falling down. There's been a bit of tape put over it. And this resident is concerned that in the summer times when the park's open, that children can go over and possibly there could be issues of them going into the river. So I'm not sure if the town council is responsible for that or who is. Can we look into that or try and establish who is responsible so we could approach them to look into the wall and try and fix that?
We can certainly look into it. I think, Peter, again, we can put that on the agenda. I'm not going to give a specific answer on that. We absolutely should be looking into it and seeing who's responsible. Okay. No more. Good. Okay. In which case, we'll move on to the minutes of the meeting. So I'm going to go on to the minutes of the Town Council meeting on the 20th of April, which is on page 7 of the pack. So for accuracy, please, on page 7. Happy with page 7? accuracy on page 8. Page 9, councillor Russell.
I think my enunciation must be very poor. Charter Lunch Biggleswade Rotary Club, it was actually the 57th birthday, not the 73rd.
We can change that. 57 varieties. Page 10, please. Anything on page 10? Page 11, page 12, and page 13. No, okay, so subject to that minor amendment, they're happy for me to sign those minutes. Thank you very much. So the next minutes are the minutes of the annual assembly. Now, I think I'm right in saying usually we get these as a draft and then we deal with it the following, so it's a year's worth. So I think it's important that we have a look through these, but we'll formally adopt them at the annual assembly in 2024. But I'm going to go on to page 14 then. Any issues on page 14? Page 15, page 16, page 17. So subject to that, perhaps we'll just note those for now and then sign them off at the next annual meeting. So we'll move on to matters arising for the Town Council meeting of the 25th. So again, page 7, any matters arising? Page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. Councillor Alvo.
Thank you. Yeah, the fourth paragraph down, members unanimously resolved to not proceed with the bicycle hire scheme and basically get some more information from CBC about where the racks would be installed, etc. Have we heard any more from CBC on that regard?
I haven't. Are you able to advise? No, we don't believe we haven't had a look back. No.
Okay, it's an important action then. Can we follow that up and make sure that we've got a response only for the next council meeting and for members perhaps in advance of that so that we're not dealing with the council meeting would be helpful. So anything else on page 11? Page 12? Page 13? No. Okay, thank you very much. So next item on the agenda, an item to consideration. So we have item 9A, which is the item in relation to the Biggleswade Joint Committee and the date change. It's fairly straightforward in the paper. Can I have your thoughts, please, members? Any thoughts? Councillor.
It seems sensible, given that the Central Beds Council isn't setting up its committees until later this week. But I do think that we need to have a meeting. I mean, Councillor Fage has alluded to it in public session. I think we need to have a session between officers and all the members of the Joint Committee to look at how the committee functions, not a formal meeting of the committee, but perhaps that could happen before the 13th of July.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's dependent on the members of the Joint Committee on CBC councillors and the town councillors. But certainly from my point of view, good idea so that we're clear on what the process is, what we're doing with the Joint Committee and the benefit of it. Because as Councillor Fage has alluded to there, there are opportunities for it to be better for Biggleswade. We won't know who the chair and vice chair of the committee are until the committee meets. So I think it's important that we at least have the communication with the ward members and trying to arrange something. So perhaps Peter, again, you've got that down there. We can take that forward. But in terms of the changing of the date to the 13th of July, are you happy to accept that recommendation that's laid out? Councillor Russell?
I'll move that we do because the date's already in the diary for those of us who are on the Joint Committee before. So unless there's something that clashes that I don't know about, I move that we accept the recommendation.
Okay. Any second to Councillor Thomas? So all those in favour? Thank you very much. So next item then on the agenda is the Capital Assets Working Group update. So obviously Karim's not with us this evening. Peter, you're going to introduce that, please?
Yeah, obviously we had some initial meetings of the capital asset working group and good progress was being made. We need to keep persevering with this, and there's still lots of capital related issues that we need to address. The working group was a good point of reference from a member perspective to try and progress these issues and also to look at the detail associated with our capital assets. So there's a recommendation that we continue with this and that the first meeting of this group should be on the 14th of June, subject to member availability.
So can I follow up on that? How many members are you looking for, Peter, to attend and to be involved in that? So 3 and 5. And in terms of, you said on the 14th of June, is that an evening meeting or a daytime meeting? Evening meeting. So with that in mind then, members, I guess we're looking for people that are keen to be involved in that. It's between 3 and 5. So I've already have Councillor Strawn, Councillor Russell, Councillor North, Councillor Alban and Councillor Knight. That's 5. I won't be able to attend the 14th of June. So perhaps for on this one, I'm sure if I'm available at other meetings, I'll attend. But if we leave it at those five members for now, that works. Thank you very much. Next item then, one-way traffic on Sun Street. How do we explain this? We've got a proposed order in relation to Sun Street, a one-way traffic order that is retrospective on the basis that it's not in place already. Thoughts, members, please. Councillor North.
Well, I think my guess is that there's some sort of legal cock-up somewhere in the process. And
is that a technical term, Councillor North? Is it a technical term? Yes. Yes, carry on. So there is an administrative error at some point. So I'm going to pass it, Councillor Strawn.
I find it quite frightening that we've got to this stage, and we all support. I think we all supported it. It seems to be working very well, so we've got to support it. But I don't wish to knock CBC, but this is ridiculous at this stage. It's been there, it's been operating, so it's probably been illegally operating, and anybody who drove the wrong way down Sun Street should get their money back.
Thank you for that input, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Russell.
In fairness, I think when this was introduced, it was on a trial basis. And if you notice at the Rose Lane, Crab Lane junction, the traffic lights there are traffic lights that aren't used at the moment. And I think that's because it might have gone back the other way. So in fairness to CBC, I think that it has been a trial and they're now obviously implementing it fully.
That's very generous, Councillor Russell. Councillor Woodhead, did you speak?
Thank you. No, I mean, notwithstanding the comments about whether it's an administrative error or not, I think it's something that we should definitely support. It's obviously on a major walking route to St Andrew's School, so it's a very heavily used pedestrianised route, and they're quite narrow pavements on there as well. So anything that sort of, I guess, pushes the traffic in one way rather than multiple ways should be supported. But yeah, that's I think we should support it. But yeah, it's quite concerning it's taking this long for them to notice their own rules. But anyway.
I'm going to allow one more. I'm going to go to Councillor Skilton, but I think we're all going to be saying the same thing, aren't we? Go ahead, Councillor Skilton.
Possibly. I just wonder if there's an opportunity here to look again at making it two-way for cyclists. That's feedback I've had from Walking and Cycling Group, and it is no narrower than Back Street, and it would be a convenient way to avoid parts of Shortmead Street.
I take on board your feedback, Councillor Skilton. I think this one is the fact that we're being advised that the order is in place or it's been consulted on. So maybe there's another opportunity, but perhaps not at this time. Go on, Councillor Alban.
Following on from what Councillor Skilton has said, and this isn't. This is for another time perhaps as well, but a 20-mile-an-hour limit on that street would be very welcome, because as it is one way, cars do tend to go a little bit too fast down there. And like was said, the footpaths are narrow, and if you're walking in the same direction as the traffic and it's coming from behind you, you just feel a little bit vulnerable. So the speed limit would be welcome.
Noted. I don't disagree with that. I think that's something for us to take forward on another agenda. Councillor Knight.
I presume we do actually need to respond to this. We need some sort of proposal. I just wanted to note that my understanding is there's a desire by CBC to put an enforcement camera. Is it on St John Street? So I wonder if that's related to this. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to remind Central Beds that we don't think that's necessary, because that was this council's view. And we certainly wouldn't want to see any enforcement cameras on Sun Street.
I think you're right, Councillor. I think from memory, the enforcement camera was in relation to the junction or to Sun Street. That may well be why this traffic order has come to us for consideration. So noted. I mean, what are members' thoughts in relation to the camera comment? Okay, let me phrase that differently. Are members happy for us to write at this stage? So I'm going to go to a vote on this one then. Are you happy for us to, in our comments, to make reference to the fact that we prefer there not to be a camera on Sun Street? So I'm going to go at this stage. Is your proposal, Councillor?
Would be my proposal if it's seconded.
Is anyone willing to second it? So Councillor Russell, you're willing to second that. So all those in favour of not supporting a camera in Sun Street, please. Those against? Okay. So at this stage then, that won't be in our response here, but we can certainly take it forward as a consideration in the future. Okay. Thank you very much.
Point of order. I think we had a majority in favour of proposing the camera.
Oh yes, so proposing the camera, yes. Opposing the camera.
I think we need to respond saying we support the traffic order, but we oppose any cameras.
We can do that.
No, thank you.
The camera wasn't a speed camera, it's a direction. Was that
yeah.
True? Yeah. Because there was several people going the wrong way down that street.
Indeed, yes.
Because the sat navs were setting the wrong way.
Right.
As soon as they realise their error, they do turn back. It's quite obvious. It takes them a while to get it.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Next item then, unitary bank signatories. So this is the item relating to straightforward signatories. So the report recommends that we add the additional 2 signatories in the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of F&GP. Absolutely. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, this is really just a stopgap. It's the big beginning of a process, which will be taking place over the next few weeks, because we need to add some more signatories. We've gone down from 7 bank signatories down to 2, and therefore we do need to add some more names, not only on Unity, but also on CCLA as well. But this is these are 2 obvious people to try to get onto the bank as quickly as we can.
Councillor Russell.
Move the recommendation.
Have a seconder? Councillor North, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Strawn, you wish to comment?
Just a question. Have we removed the ex-members who were signatories from the mandate already? Because that should be done if we haven't done so.
Yes, and this is part of the discussion actually that we're having on Thursday morning. Yeah. Thank you.
So the recommendation is for the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of F&GP to be the signatories. All those in favour of that, please. Any against? No, okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the Franklin Recreation. Help me remind me, page 28, which I'm trying to find my way through. So in relation to then the Franklin Recreation opening report, anyone introducing? You're going to introduce?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think, well, firstly, I'm delighted to say something about this because this is the culmination of a lot of hard work from our colleagues, in particular public realm. So you'll notice from the first paragraph of the report that the operational deadline is the 31st of May, which is almost upon us. I've spoken to Councillor North, and obviously there was a report going to PLOS very soon to update them in regard to the project and costs and risks associated with the detail associated with this. This report is coming to council this evening, just to be clear about when we can actually go live on properly opening it to the public. And there was a suggestion from some members that, as well as members being present, that the Carnival Prince and Princess might also like to join us for the grand, describing it, the grand opening. So the logic of this report is, firstly, can members confirm that that date seems reasonable to them? Obviously, from a community perspective, people are keen to get this opened now, and the vast proportion of work will be completed. There is a couple of small things to be done, but it will look 98% complete. Thank you.
Okay, members, thoughts, comments? Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you, Clark, for the report. No, I think this is absolutely, this is great. I've been asked probably by various people on a twice weekly basis when the park's going to be open. So I think the community is very keen, especially with the lighter evenings and nicer weather now happening, for it to sort of get open as soon as possible. I think it's great about the Carnival Prince and Princess. I think it's a nice link with sort of the carnival time of year, and also young people getting involved as well. My question in relation to this is just on that day, are we able to do, I don't know, have any sort of food stalls or catering or anything down there, or is it literally just going to be people turn up and go? I just wanted to keep people down there for a bit longer. Just a question how practical that might be, but otherwise I think, yeah, we can. I think 3rd of June, a Saturday, is a really good idea.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Any other comments? Councillor Russell and Councillor Strawn after that.
I fully support the 3rd of June and what officers are trying to do. I'm just going to sound a slightly sour note though. I recognise the deadline that the Public Realm team are facing on this, but I'm increasingly concerned about the state of some parts of the rest of the town that badly need mowing and strimming. And I would hope that we can get back to that business as usual as soon as possible.
Thank you for that, Councillor Russell. Councillor Strawn?
Just a couple of observations. I noticed the press release, but it doesn't actually make any mention of the press per se, such as the Biggleswade Chronicle, Bulletin, etc. So I trust they will be included in the press release. And I also note the comments about the mobility scooter access, which I trust also within that is wheelchair access will also be available, not just the mobility scooters.
Correct, yes.
Councillor Patel?
Just in relation to the opening, time to be confirmed. So is there any specific time at the moment in mind, morning, afternoon, or where? What's everyone's thoughts?
Peter, do you have a time scale in mind, or is it up for members to decide?
We're looking for preference from members. So
right.
I personally would have thought very late morning, early afternoon, but yeah, that sounds reasonable.
So, late morning, early afternoon is, so I always say, I'm going to look for a proposal shortly. But what I would say though, so just from the chair, if I may, just for a second, if we're opening it on the 3rd of June, is there anything else that we could do as sort of an event to encourage people to stay longer, to enjoy the area? What that looks like, I don't know, but perhaps something along the lines of a picnic or something to encourage people to stay in the area, maybe something that we should be thinking about. But Councillor Thomas.
I'll say exactly that. Picnic seems like a good idea. People can bring their own food, their own drink, hang around. We don't have to do anything, provide anything.
Okay, Councillor Patel, thank you.
Yes, going on to that point about having something to do there. I mean, Harris's are literally next door, so I'm not sure if they can somehow be involved with maybe a food stall or something.
There seems to be some reaction to that. I'm not quite sure. So there are thoughts around that. I'm going to. Councillor Russell seemed to indicate that she will want to speak. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Russell?
Just to say that I think we're trying to encourage children, and maybe we need to be encouraging the better sort of food for children.
Your point is noted, Councillor Russell. I think so. What I seem to be getting is that the 3rd of June is fine, around about 1 o'clock as a sort of an opening time, but that can be a little bit flexible. And we are looking to try and encourage people to stay down in the park and enjoy the park. And that could be a picnic or something. So we've got the 3rd of June as a date. Let's sort of flesh it out and see what we can bring forward. We still have a little bit of time. Any other, so but in terms of all those in favour of that approach? Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So next item on the agenda then is planning applications. The first one, 10A, 8 Wiseman Road, installation of 3 new windows, side of elevation, etc. Thoughts, please? Councillor Russell?
Subject to neighbours, I think.
Everyone happy with that? Okay, thank you. Next one then is 36 High Street. Listed building, display wall light, illuminated logo signs the High Street in Victoria Place. Comments, please, Councillor Knight.
So we did consider this before. I don't think the plans have changed. That was planning permission. This time it's listed building consent. A previous generation of this council moved no objections. So I propose we do the same again for the listed building consent.
So seconded by Councillor Alban. All those in favour of that approach? Okay, thank you very much for that. Next item then, Fairfield Cottage, Fairfield Road, new garage and carport with store above to replace the existing outbuildings and garages. Councillor Alban.
Thank you. I'd like to move that we do not object to this, but as long as comments from the arboricultural officer are given regard, and it's about avoiding impact to nearby protected trees, and also the recommendations of the ecology appraisal. So if there need to be conditions, I would like to see those two as conditions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from members? Councillor Estron?
Yeah, an observation. I believe that in fact this is effectively replacing existing buildings on a slightly different footprint, and I think it's actually less intrusive than it was previously because the buildings are lower. And I understand the local planning officer had indicated previously they thought it was probably a good idea, but it didn't seem to get to committee and was rejected on a slightly different application which has been improved. So this seems to be a better deal than there's currently there at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, please? So proposal is to not object, subject to the conditions of the comments of Councillor Alban in relation to arboreal assessment, etc. All those in favour, please? No one against. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item, 4 Coltsfoot. New position of boundary fence and new front boundary wall with railings. Any comments, please? Councillor Knight.
I'm of two minds on this one. So I've had a look at the area, and this is really enclosing a front garden with a relatively open sort of wall and fence above it, but it's going to have quite a dramatic impact on the street scene, I think. And it would be basically the only property with a fenced in front garden. So I do have some concerns, and I'd certainly like to hear other views because I think I'm minded to object.
Any other comments? Well, I'm going to, from the chair, then I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Knight. Having looked at the site and then doing a bit of a view around the area, it would be the only one that's enclosed, albeit it's an extension of the existing wall. And then there's a lower wall on the other, as extension at the front, and then there's another fence on the other side. I agree. I think it does look to be a little bit more intrusive than you might expect. So I'm inclined to agree with you on that.
Move that as a proposal then.
Okay, I'm not inclined to second, but I will second from the chair on this occasion. So all those in favour of an objection on that basis? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got to make a decision. Are you leaving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the second time in 2 meetings, I've got to make a decision.
What if it order? You've only asked for the 1 vote in favour. You haven't asked for those to vote against.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Against. So those against, please. Quite right, Councillor Strawn. Those against. Those abstaining. And the event of that is still the same, I think. So. Oh my goodness, right, I'm going to stop now then, right, so right, thank you very much. Right, shall we move on to the next item then on the agenda, which is the plan and application? It is my first one, give me the benefit of that. Yeah, absolutely, I bet it is. Go on before we move on to the, see if I can get that one right.
All I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, was that I'm conscious that this has been on the agenda for a very long time, this item, and we keep slimming it down, but I'm still not necessarily clear that we've got the value and the layout of the right information for members. And it may be that separate from the forum today, we might want to look at the future of this particular item.
I don't disagree. I think there is, in terms of planning application outcomes, what do you want? For now, you're quite right. I think there's time and effort that goes into the report. If members are just going, okay, that's very interesting. We're not. It's not valuable to us. We should be reviewing the time and effort that's been put into the report. So, again, not for this time, I think, but it's something that we should be considering at a future meeting. So, before we do that, though, in relation to this agenda, are there any comments that you want to make, Councillor Albo?
Yeah, just a small point on page 31, the first item, the decision, or the decision is, it says see below, and there isn't a below, presumably because it has been tidied up and the reference to below is no longer there. So it's just a very small point. But also, I was pleased to see on page 35 that the planning application for the Red Lion was refused, which tallies with what this council was after. So very pleased to see that.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, no other comments. We will move on to the next item then, which is accounts. So obviously there's no accounts on this meeting. So item for information, members, you'll see the correspondence relation from Highways England in relation to the proposed closure of the Central Reservation. Any comments in relation to that one, Councillor Albo?
Yeah, it's just not at all clear what the future might hold as far as that crossing is concerned. There's a very vague reference to it that the developers will do something. So I'm not quite sure what we can do, but we should do all that we can possibly do to get our preferred solution, which is an underpass.
I think it's clear that we supported an effective solution for residents to be able to cross the A1. I agree with it. Doesn't seem to indicate any detail. So I think we need to get some more detail if we can. Any other comments, Councillor Russell?
You remember that Mike Wells came and spoke to us, and he sent me something very amusing a couple of days ago. It's a piece from an Irish newspaper where somebody says that the late Monsignor James Horan called something the MAD file, or maximum administrative delay, and he thinks that's what's happening with Highways England and Central Bedfordshire. Maximum administrative delay.
Okay, Councillor Straw, thank you for that, Councillor Russell. Councillor Straw.
I think the reply shows that the highways haven't really bothered addressing the point. And effectively they're pointing it back to CBC as the planning authority and the arrangements with the Woodlands Nursery development. So perhaps we should ask CBC that, in view of the comments of the National Highways Authority, how are CBC proposing to deal with it with the planning application?
Any other thoughts on that? Thank you, Councillor Strawn. So are you making a proposal there, Councillor? I'll allow a proposal on this item if you wish to make one.
I'd propose that we contact CBC, highlighting what the response is and expressing our concern that there's no certainty over the crossing for pedestrians, in particular from Biggleswade to Northhill. And could they please let us know what the situation is with regard to the planning and how they're proposing to address the issues, particularly the underpass?
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Approach everybody. Okay. So on that basis, all those in favour of that proposal, That is almost unanimous. Thank you very much. Yeah, so, anybody against? No? No? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda then is the public open session to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council through the chairman in respect of any other business of the council. Okay, yes, Councillor Page.
Is this still on? Yes, it is. Hello again. So firstly, thank you for your support on 9A. I think there is a great opportunity to rethink the joint committee. Leading on from that is an item under exempt on partnership working. And just to say, it's quite right that this is under exempt because it's essentially agenda setting, which is not something that should really be taking place in public open session. But I understand from emails that I've been copied on that there is something of a proposal from Central Bedfordshire councillors to be perhaps a little bit more involved in the town council meeting, whether that's feeding back early on in the session or perhaps slightly later on, or really being there at the request of the town council to provide updates from Central Bedfordshire. And listening to proceedings this evening, there have been a couple of things which have come up that, frankly, the town council, in my view, should be demanding of their Central Beds councillors. A good example is the bike proposal, which shouldn't only be officer to officer. There should be a political dimension with ward councillors pushing that as well, because it's the right thing for the town. Equally, with the King's Reach bins, this is something I've already pursued. It's something my ward colleagues already pursued, and yet we're going to spend public funds, i.e. employing our staff to spend their time pursuing it as well. If we were to use perhaps 5 minutes in each session for feedback to and from Central Bedfordshire councillors, giving town councillors the opportunity to make representations on behalf of residents for things which are specifically things that only ward councillors can push, I think there's an opportunity there. And I say that because we are very early on in this session. By that I mean the 4 years that some of us, all of us, are going to be serving, and it's an opportunity now to reset. Whatever has happened over the last 4 years, whatever administration has come before, is what it is. We have a new set of councillors now. Sadly, none of them double hat with the town council, and we need to make sure that the partnership starts off and moving in the right direction. So you don't have to make a final decision tonight. You can try something for a bit, and if you don't like it, tweak it. But I would urge you to hopefully engage positively with all Central Beds colleagues, because there's something that the town council should be working constructively with. And I know you will with me. I hope you will with others as well.
Well, that's to be decided, Councillor Fraser, I think, but you're quite right. So yes, I think, thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the public wish to make any representations? Yeah.
Excuse me, can't speak here.
They can't.
Could you, I'm not sure where this comes up, because the agenda item for the development north of Biggleswade is under exempt items. So presumably I can't bring any comments forward on exempt items at that stage.
No, that's correct. So if you wish to make comments in relation to the Land North application, this is your opportunity to do so.
Okay, so I'm a lay person and I've read the document and I do not understand what the document is trying to achieve. It is a what do they call it? A mitigation report prepared by the developer and submitted to Central Beds with an idea to mitigate the bad effects on the local highway network. Having read it, it's only 31 pages long. I'm not sure whether it's an amendment to the transport assessment that was consulted on in November, December 22, or is it a new standalone document? Because it's not clear. You've got 2 new proposals within the document that weren't in the original transport assessment. They've taken an awful lot of proposals out, and a lot of the drawings they've put in, of which there are 13 total, there are only 3 new ones. The other ones have been brought forward from the previous transport assessment. So is it a revised transport assessment? If it is, then all the documentation that was consulted on before is meaningless. Or is it a standalone document? If it's a standalone document, why have they incorporated parts of the original transport assessment of the amended one of 2022. I'm afraid it's the usual submission by this developer to try and mislead, confuse members of the public, because I'm certainly confused. And I just find it's not a professional way of going forward. And I'm surprised that Central Beds officers have allowed this to come out to consultation, because what are we consulting on? We don't know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Denshaw. I think absolutely we'll take your comments on board, and when this item is considered within the exempt session, we'll absolutely take on board your feedback and react accordingly. As there are no other members of the public, have we got anyone live? No. Okay, so then are you happy, members, to adjourn to move to go into the Councillor Alban?
Thank you. Yeah, there are two items listed as exempt that I don't believe should be exempt. So firstly, 16C, which is councillor co-option vacancy. So I think in the interest of openness and transparency, this item should be actually discussed in public. If it's discussed in private, members of the public may conclude that something underhand is going on. And we should be striving to reassure residents that discussions around councillor positions to be filled by co-option are above board. And the best way of doing this is to do it in public. So there's no reason, in my opinion, that this item should be an exempt item. So I propose that it is heard in public.
Okay, do I have a second of that proposal? Okay. So is anybody, can I have a vote on then? So all those, so Councillor Strong.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Has the town clerk got any advice with regard to this? Because there may be reasons that we might advise that it should be exempt. I must say I can't think of any myself, but if there is a specific reason, I think we should know.
Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. I took a view and I obviously paid reference to Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, that there was a possibility that issues might come up connected to an individual. And as such, in that particular circumstance, this might be an exempt conversation. And that's the view I took at the time, which is consistent with the advice within the Act.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So listening to the comments that have been made, tonight we're talking about the process. We shouldn't be talking about any individuals. So I'm content we should be able to discuss this in open.
So we had a proposal that was seconded. All those, any other comments before we move to a vote then? So all those in favour for this item being brought into the public session? Okay, anybody against? Councillor Russell, Councillor. Okay, so the vote is carried then. So this item then will be in the public session. Councillor Albo.
Yeah, so the second item that I believe should not be exempt is 16E, partnership working. So I'd like to propose this is taken in public. It's very difficult to argue the case without reference to the detail, and the detail is currently on the agenda as exempt. So I won't do that, but members will know what this is about. So again, in the interest of openness and transparency, I would urge you to agree that it's not considered as exempt, but is taken in the public session.
So again, that's a proposal. Anyone seconded, please? Councillor Skilton. Any other comments, please? Come on, Councillor Skilton.
I just think in sort of relation to the campaign that was run for CBC, there was a lot of talk about political parties versus independents and the merits. And I think having a discussion around working with councillors at CBC that are not members of a political party in a private way could be construed the wrong way by members of the public.
Okay, comment noted. So any other comments before we then move to a vote on this one? No. Okay, so we all know what the vote is. So all those in favour of considering this item in the public session, please show. 1, 2, 3. All those against it being considered in the public session, I think that's the majority is it's not considered in the public session. You can. So can I then, we go back and we obviously need to have the vote recorded then, as Councillor Alban. Just your vote.
I simply want it recorded that I voted the way I
Right, so
voted.
that's fine. So Councillor Alban's is requested. Anyone else? Councillor Skilton?
Sorry,
Okay.
are all votes not recorded?
No, not names, no.
I'd like my vote
but it's very
recorded.
clear that obviously we do
Yeah,
record.
yeah,
so
yeah.
But it won't show on the minutes otherwise.
Okay, please record my vote.
Okay. So this item then will be considered in the exempt session. So with that in mind, then we're now going to move on to the councillor co-option vacancy within the public session. So I'm just going to find the right page here. Go on, Peter, while I'm finding the page.
So if it's okay, perhaps I can introduce this conversation.
First, if we're going into exempt session, we still got.
Not on this one. So so this is the co-option one, Councillor Strawn.
No. So members will be aware that an advert was placed one day after the elections to ask for potential interested candidates to come forward for 2 vacancies we have from members. The closing date, if I believe, is the 2nd of June, I recall, which is closely upon us. There are 3 things that we need to debate here and to take some sense of direction. Number 1 is a shortlisting process connected to those individuals who would have made an application. Number 2 is how you would wish the interview process to take place. And number 3 is how you would wish to vote connected to any potential successful applicant. Chair.
Okay, so follow on from Peter's comments, obviously you've seen in the papers what the advert. Also, members have been given a copy of the sort of it's not a recommendation, it's some guidelines of something that we could work towards or not work towards. So I would say that as you'll be aware, I asked for these to be shared with members so that we had something to work from. Whether you've used one way or the other, it gives us something as a sort of a platform to consider or not. So the key things are, as Peter's laid out, how we're going to select for shortlist, the process around how we interview as such, or how we do, whether we interview or not, and also then how the voting session goes. So I'm going to go to Councillor Knight, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I think it's important we're open and transparent with this whole process, and that the process itself needs to be published. So I'm glad we're debating in open session tonight, and I hope there are lots of applicants. I'm going to describe my views on how this should work, and I'm very happy for this to be a proposal if people are ready for that, if there's anyone to second it. So firstly, shortlisting. I think all valid candidates should be brought forward to council. So I think officers should weed out anybody who's not eligible for whatever legal reason, distance, but then I think all candidates should come forward to council. The document that was shared with us suggested that each candidate speaks for 5 minutes, and then we move to secret ballots. I thought about this quite a bit. I think I like the idea that each candidate provides a short 5-minute statement. So I support that. I think the order that the candidates speak should be randomized, so there's no advantage with being chosen first or last. I think candidates should all wait in the back room and be called forward one at a time in random order, so that no candidate can hear another candidate's statement. And again, there's no advantage with coming earlier or later in the process. I think candidates should speak up to 5 minutes for a personal statement to introduce themselves, because we may not know many of the candidates. I think after the candidates have spoken, there should be an opportunity for members of the council to ask any questions. And I think that should probably be time limited. So I suggest 5 minutes of Q&A that should be chaired by the chairman, who can select who can ask a question. After that, we should move to a secret ballot, I think, as proposed in the document that the clerk shared. And I like the proposal of having repeated rounds until we only have 2 candidates left. I think it's very important that the secret ballot happens in a public meeting, so that whole process can be observed. However, I think, and this is difficult, but I think the statements and Q&A should probably be held in an exempt session before that council meeting. Because otherwise you could imagine we've asked the candidates to wait in the back room, but then they could watch the meeting on YouTube. It doesn't make a lot of sense for that to be held in public. And I think also candidates may want to make comments about their personal lives. I don't know. The questions could encourage the candidates to release personal information, and I don't think that's fair. So I've sort of reluctantly concluded that it would be better for those statements and any Q&A, so it'd be up to 10 minutes per candidate in total, 5 minutes speech, 5 minutes Q&A. I think that is better in exempt, and then the exempt should end and we can go to the secret ballot. So those are my proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alban.
Yep, some of that I like. I think there should be provision for applicants who aren't able to attend the meeting, because there might be, for whatever reason, that might happen. So a written statement as opposed to making a statement to council. Q&A, I'm very doubtful about that. We want to attract all sorts of candidates from diverse backgrounds with different skill sets. It could be seen as very daunting to sit in front of 13 other councillors while they sort of probe them with questions. All the councillors sitting here tonight didn't have to go through that process, so I don't really see why that should be sort of inflicted on anybody who's applying for co-option.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor North, then Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, basically I agree with what Councillor Knight has said in terms of the outline and basically supporting the document produced by the Chief Executive on this subject. I have a lot of sympathy with what Councillor Alban said about the question and answer, that I'm not sure that really is going to produce anything or be particularly straightforward to actually conduct in practice. So I think a short statement is all that's really required. And the other point, in my opinion, I think the voting and balloting and should be carried out in exempt session as well. And then in public is announce the actual names of the 2 successful candidates. That's my opinion.
Councillor North, Councillor Skilton.
The reason I went out didn't say anything about the process. I think it's an informal chat, and if the flights before now, they should be made aware that there might be something more than an informal chat. And so obviously, that's the basis of the information.
Absolutely right, Councillor Skilton. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. I think I agree with a lot of what's been said on both sides in terms of, I think that a written CV should be available from the candidates in case they can't attend. I don't think a question and answer session is appropriate. The questions can be slanted unless you have agreed questions in advance. It takes it all away. Then people can be prepared. So I think the question and answer session is inappropriate. I think they should stand or fall on their own speech, so to speak, as they would do in council effectively. And I think it's essential that the voting procedure is in exempt. Let's face it, if you have an election, those elections effectively held in exempt because members of the public just aren't allowed in there. You have to be effectively nominated to be in there. So it's no different from a public election for indeed the town council.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Yes, I'm not sure whether Councillor Knight made a formal proposal. Okay, well, listening to colleagues, I think I would make a formal proposal that says that all eligible candidates should come forward, and eligible meaning in electoral terms, that they should make a 5-minute statement, and that any voting should be in private. The whole thing should be in private, and it should be not a formal council meeting, but a meeting of all councillors with the candidates. That's my proposal.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second of that proposal? So Councillor North, thank you. Councillor Knight.
Ask a question. So if it's not a meeting of council, would that meeting be able to make a decision in terms of actually co-opting two councillors? The clerk's shaking his head. So
no, they can't.
So at some stage, there needs to be a formal meeting to actually conclude that process.
In that case, I withdraw that part of the proposal. And we obviously did it very wrong when we did it 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
So would Councillor Russell be happy to confirm that the candidates would be randomised in terms of the order of their presentation, and that they wouldn't be able to hear each other's statements?
Yes.
Okay.
So I sort of took that for granted.
Okay. So
yes.
on that basis, I'd be happy to second that proposal.
So what we're saying is that all eligible applicants will be brought forward. Each candidate will be asked to make a presentation. So, and this is going to be in a private meeting of all councillors. There is no Q&A session within that element. The voting on all the candidates will be in the public, so it will be private. What we haven't addressed is what happens if an individual is not able to attend the meeting. How do we go forward with that? Do I have any thoughts, any proposals on that? The Woodhead.
I mean, two just obvious statements come to mind. One is either a written statement, I think as Councillor Albone alluded to, or dare I say, if they join on Zoom or whatever, if there's some other outstanding reason that they can't make it. But because I think we really have to kind of have it on one evening. I think if we're stretching it over a couple of evenings, that's not going to work. I think we need to stick to one day and try and make accommodations for that as best we can.
Understood. So what I'm trying to get clarity on though, is it we are requiring attendance via Zoom, or is it a written statement is acceptable? I think we just need to be clear whether both are acceptable or neither. How do we go? So I'm going to go with Councillor North first and then Councillor Russell.
Well, I would suggest that we try and find a date and time where all the candidates can make it, and if that means a little bit of a delay, maybe by a week or two, then we should accept that. So we should try and get the candidates there. Failing that, then we'll accept a written statement to the council, and then they would be entered into the balloting process.
Okay, noted. I'm going to go with Councillor Skilton.
So do we have to see them all at once? So if they're not available on a set date, and if we have to make the decision at a council meeting, could the informal chat take place outside of the meeting, but the decision is taken at the meeting?
I think there's a risk here that the process could be elongated. I think if we're minded to, I think there's a proposal that we allow a written statement. So in the event that people are not able to attend, then we can make an assessment on the basis of that, or that we use Zoom as an option. So I'm going to go with Councillor Knight, then Councillor Russ.
So I'll propose an amendment to the proposal then, which is, I think it has to be on one night, because otherwise there's an advantage if people are on different nights. But it's either an oral statement in person or a written statement if they're unable to attend.
Okay. And I think that there's also helpful that in the event that our council, if we let's say we decided to go on 2 nights and then one councillor was on one evening and not on another evening, it gets messy. So I think we've got to do it on one event. Councillor Strong.
A question. I think it's got to be done in one go. We've talked about written statements. We've talked about in-person attendance. Would it be possible or feasible that if someone is physically not able to attend for good reason, for them to do an oral statement by way of a recording?
I'm going to go with Councillor Russell.
I think we're in danger of tying ourselves in knots, Chairman. I think we've got a good proposal now that accounts for everything. We get it done on one night. It's either an oral statement or a written statement. People wait in the back room to speak. It's randomised order. And when we've seen everybody, we have a secret ballot until we get down to 2. I think that encompasses everything.
Go ahead, Councillor Skilton.
Just one more point. If we're going to, is there a criteria that we will judge them on, like a job description or personal spec? And if there is, that should be made available to the person before they make their statement. Go on then, Peter.
I'll briefly comment. I mean, there is no official adopted person specification. Within the documentation that the Mayor asked me to circulate, there is something there that you might wish to consider if you want to go down that process.
So I'm going to then ask members to, Councillor Skilton has asked a question. I'll leave it open to other people to comment in relation to that or other matters. Councillor Agnew.
I think no specifics should be explained and elaborated in this process, and you probably have seen the papers. And if I could also add for the earlier point, when all the candidates already submitted their names, at this point, we know however many they are. We could actually, strictly speaking, send them 2 available dates on which we agree in advance and actually make it clear that this is the choice and somehow elaborate the dates so that there is less problem with that.
Going to get to a point where we're very close to concluding this. I'm going to go with Councillor Knight, and then we're going to go to, I'm going to ask Councillor Russell to then summarise after that, and then a second, and then we'll go to a vote.
So I think it should be on an ordinary council evening, which is normally Tuesday evening. In relation to Councillor Strawn's point, it is actually a job requirement that you attend in person because legislation requires votes to be in person. So, you know, if someone can't come on a specific Tuesday night, then absolutely they can write a written submission, and I think we should consider that to be equivalent. But I think if someone, for example, isn't able to attend because they have a disability, regretfully, the law at the moment wouldn't allow that person to be an effective councillor. So I think it's a challenging situation. I think we should just say it will be a council meeting on or around the 12th of June, and when we start the meeting in exempt.
So I'm going to go to Councillor Russell then.
Right. Well, I agree with the statement that Councillor Knight's just made. So as far as shortlisting is concerned, we're saying all eligible in electoral terms, people will be brought forward. They'll do a 5-minute presentation orally or a written presentation if they can't attend. They'll be seen in a randomised order so people can wait in the back room if necessary. And the vote will be a series of secret ballots until we get down to 2 people. I think that covers everything.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Knight. All those in favour then for that proposal? Okay. Well done, everybody. We got there in the end. Okay, thank you very much. So that then, subject to any other comments, that does conclude the public session. So, so the wording is along the lines of, are we happy to move that the press and public are excluded from this meeting? Do I have a happy to move?